One wrong turn off the highway exposed everything: my wife's affair, the son who wasn't mine, and the quiet betrayal that had been hiding in plain sight. But this isn't a story about being broken. It's about how I turned their deception into a legacy of my own, with a child they never deserved. And when the truth came crashing down, it wasn't loud. It was final. She kissed me like she always did, mechanical and precise, a gesture so rehearsed it had lost its warmth. Then she turned away, adjusting her dress in the mirror with a distant look. She thought I didn't notice. "We'll take separate cars," she said, her tone light, too casual, like a rehearsed alibi. I nodded, just as she expected. I buckled our son into the passenger seat. He looked at me in that quiet, searching way children do when they sense a storm but don't understand its cause. We pulled out of the driveway, and she was already gone halfway through the drive. He leaned in close, his small voice trembling with the weight of a secret. "Dad, Mom doesn't know I found this." He opened his tiny fist, revealing a hotel key card, white plastic, with room number 237, scrawled across it in blue pen. Beneath that, a name, Mark. I took it from him, my hand steady despite the rising tide within me. I smiled at him, a smile that felt foreign on my face, and turned off the highway. "I think I took a wrong turn," I said. He didn't argue. He was a smart kid. He gets that from Mitha. Hotel was unremarkable, sterile, the kind of place where secrets are kept behind closed doors. I parked around the back, leaving the car running. "Stay here," I told him. "I'll be right back." He didn't ask why. He just nodded. The elevator smelled of bleach and regret. I watched the red numbers climb, each floor a drumbeat counting down to the inevitable. Second floor, left turn, room 237. I knocked once. Silence. Then a soft click. The door opened 2 inches and stopped. A man stood there. Tall, shirt half buttoned, bare feet pressed into the cheap carpet. Behind him, I caught her perfume, her laugh, her silhouette etched against the hotel curtain light. He looked at me with indifference, like I was a food delivery or a wrong room, until his eyes locked onto mine. That changed everything. From the bed, her voice floated out. "Mark, who is it?" "My name isn't Mark. It never was." He closed the door slowly. I let him. I didn't knock again. There was no need that night. I said nothing. Not during dinner, not in bed. She smiled at me with a counterfeit grace, as if the mask hadn't slipped. She told me about her parents' party, her mother's dress, and her father's toast. She spoke of details with a polished ease, painting a narrative that had holes I no longer needed to patch. I nodded at the right moments. But I already knew what the wallpaper in room 237 looked like. I knew how many rings she took off before lying down the next day, while she was in the shower. I checked her messages. She didn't know I had cloned her phone a year ago, a precaution born out of quiet suspicion. Mark had been careful, using burner numbers, hiding conversations, but no one is that careful forever. Their first meeting was 6 months ago, at a conference. The perfect cover. Photos, text threads filled with laughter, casual cruelty aimed at me, plans for a future they pretended to keep hypothetical. She called me distant, cold, disconnected. She wasn't wrong. Trust once fractured does not lend itself to warmth. Every lie, every secret brought me to one inevitable step. A DNA test. One swab from our son, one from me. 3 days of silence. The envelope arrived. Plain, white, deceptively innocent. I opened it in my office. Door locked. Blinds drawn. Not a match. Probability of paternity, 0.00%. I read it once. Twice. The third time, the words lost shape, blending into a cold, absolute truth. I folded the paper carefully, like loading a gun, and slipped it into my jacket pocket that evening. I set the table with her favorite dishes, lit candles, and curated a playlist she adored. She walked in, radiant in her deceit, smiling like she had one. After dessert, I slid the envelope across the table. No words. She opened it, hands trembling, lips parting in silent dread. Her eyes met mine, but by then, I was a shadow in the room. "I can explain," she whispered. I nodded, not in agreement, just acknowledging her voice, a sound that no longer anchored me. She reached for my hand. I withdrew it. A clean severance. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't curse. I simply slid my phone across the table, screen lit up with a thread of messages between her and Mark. Dates, times, locations. Her facade crumbled. "I saw you," I said, my voice calm. "One wrong turn. That's all it took." She started to cry, but tears are cheap when weaponized as a shield. "I didn't mean for this to happen. You meant it every time you lied." She stood, reaching for me again. But I stepped back, drawing a line she could no longer cross. "He's not mine. but I'll raise him like he is, because you don't deserve him." She collapsed into the chair, defeated, unraveling. I turned and walked away. No slamming doors, no cinematic threats. Just the kind of silence that speaks louder than any scream. When I returned home, he was sitting on the porch steps, still holding that key card. I took it from his hand, pocketing it as a relic of a life dismantled. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't need to. We sat together as the sun dipped below the horizon, my arm draped around his small shoulders. He wasn't my blood, but he was mine. She thought she had broken me, but all she did was reveal what had already withered away. Identity forged in betrayal isn't a loss. It's a resurrection. Finality doesn't roar. It closes the door gently and discards the key. I didn't look back. Days folded into weeks. The house, once a reflection of shared moments, now echoed only with the sound of two hearts learning to sync. Morning routines simplified. Breakfasts turned into conversations, the kind that didn't need words. He had a way of asking questions with his eyes, and I learned to answer in silence. The custody papers arrived a month later. Neat, professional. Her signature etched with the precision of someone following instructions rather than seeking reconciliation. There were no courtroom battles. She didn't fight. Maybe guilt had a weight too heavy to lift, or maybe she had already begun rewriting her narrative with Mark. Either way, the papers were signed, filed, and returned. Officially, he was mine. I took a leave of absence from work. They called it compassionate leave. I called it breathing space. We spent days exploring the city as strangers who no longer needed introductions. Museums, parks, cheap diners with greasy booths, places where stories are crafted from simple joys. He asked once, in the soft hours of dawn, why Mom wasn't coming home. Because sometimes people leave before they're gone, I said. He nodded, as if that made perfect sense. But peace is a fragile thing. It shatters as easily. One evening, a knock at the door, not frantic, but deliberate. She stood there, not dressed in contrition, but in defiance. Behind her, Mark. His presence wasn't accidental. He was the shadow she had chosen to drag into our space. "We need to talk," she said. "Not here," I replied. She glanced past me, trying to catch a glimpse of the life she had forfeited. I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. Mark spoke first. His voice, smooth, calculated. "There's no need for hostility. We want what's best for everyone." I smiled, not from humor, but from the absurdity of his intrusion. "You want what's best for yourselves. Let's not pretend otherwise." She intervened, her tone brittle. "We want joint custody. He deserves to know his real father." The audacity in her words was surgical, precise, designed to cut you on visitation rights after abandoning the truth. That's rich. He knows who his father is. Biology doesn't redefine loyalty. Mark stepped forward, posturing in the way cowards do when they believe paperwork can substitute for principle. "We can make this legal," he said. "Courts are impartial." I laughed, a sound sharp and clear. "Courts see paper. They don't see nights spent wiping tears, stories read by flashlight during power outages, or silent drives where a child's grip on your hand is the only anchor." I handed them an envelope, thinner than the last. Inside were copies of her messages, legal documents, and timelines. "This isn't a war you're equipped to win," I said. "Not because of threats or leverage, but because truth isn't yours to barter anymore." She paled. Mark stiffened, but neither found words to challenge the quiet certainty of that moment. They left, not in defeat, but in delay. People like them don't accept endings. They circle, hoping the narrative will shift. Weeks passed. Then came the letter, an official summons for a custody hearing. They wanted to contest. They underestimated the cost of exposure. The courtroom was cold, sterile, a stage where facts replace feelings. Their lawyer built a case on biological rights. Mine was constructed on presence, consistency, and the undeniable bond that ink cannot measure. The judge listened, eyes sharp, questions sharper. Then came the turning point. My lawyer presented a timeline of negligence, lies, and abandonment. Photographs of school events where she was absent, medical records she never signed, messages where she prioritized secrecy over motherhood. Mark's facade cracked first. His confidence, built on legal jargon, crumbled under the weight of lived reality. She wept, but the courtroom was immune to drama. The verdict was clear. Full custody was awarded to me, visitation at my discretion. Mark's petition for paternal recognition was denied. The gavel's strike wasn't loud, but its echo was final. That evening, he sat beside me on the porch again. Same steps, same sunset, but a different weight. "What now, Dad?" he asked. "Now we build," I said. not from what they left, but from what we choose to create. Healing isn't cinematic. It doesn't come with grand gestures or sudden revelations. It's built in moments like shared laughter over burnt toast, in quiet assurances during storms, in the simple act of showing up without being asked. She and Mark faded into footnotes, stories he will someday understand on his terms. As for me, I found clarity in the spaces they vacated. Identity isn't forged in betrayal, it's sculpted in the aftermath, and when I look at him, I don't see a past. I see a future that chose me back. We never looked back.